This is day 5 of the April 92 7-day retreat at Springwater. I wrote down a few questions and comments. There wasn't enough time and memory to write them down, all of them. You talk about interest being at the heart of awareness. I find it interesting to look at nice and beautiful things, inside and also outside. But it is not interesting to me to look at my dis-ease. There doesn't seem to be the energy to look at it. But I notice that when I don't look at it, things get more and more sticky, and then one is stuck. In exploring what is faith, you have said that it is memory, belief, conditioned thinking, and so forth. This, I think, is not the whole thing. This is a fragmentary way of looking at something through your own experience. Someone else's experience with faith may be different. Faith may have an innocent quality, a hope without knowing. In looking at attachment, I find that there is a real attachment when, for instance, one lives with someone in a long, close relationship, shares together, really gets used to each other, and then suffers great pain of loss when that person dies. And then there is the attachment in memory to something that happened long ago, and yet remains so strong, so binding, that one has grown afraid to even get close to someone or something again, for fear of this terrible pain of loss. I find your use of the analogy of the computer, with its memory, with its programs and disks, for the way our human mind works, not human. It strikes me as cold. Can we explore a part of us, focus on a particular matter in a complete way, in a way that that is an opening to wholeness? There's the question of the problem of our inner dis-ease, discomfort, pain, grief, loss, sadness, loneliness. And where's the interest to come from to look at that? There's interest to look at beautiful things, says this person, no problem. But there's lack of interest to look at the dis-ease inside, which is a seeming lack of energy to look, and then things get sticky and one gets stuck. That was one of the questions and comments. The other is, can one look at a part, the dis-ease inside, and look at it in such a complete way that there is an opening to wholeness? And the question of faith, we touched upon it yesterday. I don't remember what I said. We can look at it newly, freshly this morning. But we will start at looking. Can we look at a part in a whole way? Because it's absolutely impossible to look at all the parts. All the parts of myself. I listed a few a while ago. Anger or jealousy, loneliness, pain, sorrow, sadness, loss, wanting, fearing. There's endless parts. And all of these parts don't make the whole. No matter how many parts we look at, no matter how complete the description of all the parts may be, no matter how many experiences there may be, yours and mine, all of that added together will never make the whole, because the whole is not the totality of parts. So we can only look at the part. We cannot look at the whole thing. You cannot look at wholeness. Wholeness is nothing to look at because there's no separate observer in wholeness. No separate explorer, as we went into very deeply yesterday. There may be a strong conviction, a strong feeling of being a separate observer and identification with that observer. But as long as there's the feeling of a separate observer, a witness, an explorer, a listener, there cannot be wholeness, because there's me separate from what I'm looking at or exploring, which is the part, looking at the part. Am I going too fast? Please, if it is too fast, not clear, bring it to meetings. And we'll go over it again freshly. I may not see the whole thing either. We have to look. Not take anything for granted. But you see, it is the quality of looking, the quality of inquiring, without self-centered motive of being the best inquirer, the best listener, the best talker. That kind of partiality, if that is quiet, that deeply habitual need to make something of oneself, to be somebody, when that circuit, as we have called it, is without energy, and the energy instead is in looking and listening this instant, not from a perspective, not from a vantage point. Even my own experience is just a part. It's not the whole. My own experience is not the whole, but the looking and listening, can that be whole? Regardless of one's own personal experience, can the looking and listening this instant, here together, be whole? Not for me, not for you, but looking and listening, openly. Not seeking a result, not starting with a motive. We're starting with a question which is there. And the question is, can there be looking at a part in a complete way so there's an opening to wholeness? And the part, excuse me, the part that we can look at this morning, because that also was brought up by one of us, is the inner dis-ease and the lack of interest for looking at that. Can there be looking at the inner dis-ease not just from one's partial point of view, not just analyzing it, knowing it from the past, but being with it as it manifests right now. The lack of energy, the person said. I don't want to look at it. It was one of the first questions too we read. Leaving a retreat, so much came up for me that I saw and I didn't want to see it. It was too painful. But here I am in another retreat. Can we look right now at inner pain? Pain of loss? Pain of loneliness? The ache of jealousy? Of feeling insufficient? Or the pride of feeling superior, knowing it, having something that others don't, the pride of comparison, whatever may be there that is nagging, upsetting, preventing a wholesome looking. Can it be allowed to come up and reveal itself? Fear? Anguish? What will we pick? We will usually pick something. We can't pick the whole. You can't look at the whole, but can the whole be in the listening, in the looking? Shall we look at attachment, because that was also brought up? What is attachment? It has flickered on and off throughout this retreat, in meetings, group meetings. I don't know whether we've brought it up in a talk yet. Can one look at attachment? We're all attached to someone, attached to something, attached to our own existence, to what we think we are, or what we hope we would be, attached to our past, attached to our views, to our opinions, to our beliefs. What does this mean? What does it mean to be attached? Can one look? Are we looking? Looking without knowing the answer yet? I don't know it yet. Maybe we won't know it. I'm looking, raising the question, what is attachment? And to bring up in the mind something or someone to which there is felt deep attachment. As though it were a part of me. Because there's fundamentally attachment to oneself, isn't there? One's existence. And therefore attachment to all that one is identified with. Including one's memories. Person saying there's attachment to a painful memory. It's so strong. It still operates now. Attachment to the memory of an attachment that broke. And the fear of getting close to anyone or anything, for fear of losing it, of suffering that pain again that is still in the system, easily triggered. Either through the memory of the incident or by getting close to someone. And then the fear, panicky fear, painful fear. Don't go close, you may lose, it may break. I'm not going to go through that again. These may not be the exact words for each one of us, but something like that comes up very quickly. That's why the analogy of the computer is used. Memories come up just like at the push of a key. There it is, unless it's repressed. It's not used, the analogy, to say what cold beings we are, although we are often very cold. We are very mechanical. Let's face it. In the quickness of our reactions from memory, there's no warmth of heart, no space. It comes so quick, lights up on the screen, expresses itself in action and behavior. So are we looking at attachment and what it is, wondering? And not saying is bad, mustn't be attached. Not saying I must get rid of my attachments to be a free person. Or saying, well, attachment is just conditioned thinking. It's labeling. It's not looking wholesomely at what is actually revealing itself in the presence of asking and looking and questioning and pausing. Do we say we're attached to someone or something when there is the fear of loss embedded in what we call the attachment? We haven't quite looked at it yet, what it is, how it manifests physically, mentally. How does it manifest when I say I'm attached to him, I'm attached to her, I'm attached to my belief, to my opinion, my family, my position? What do we mean by it? Looking, not just analyzing, looking right now. How does it manifest? Does it manifest in defensiveness? Somebody attacks my opinions, I lash out, defend them, as though it was part of my body that was being threatened. I feel hurt. Is that an indirect manifestation of attachment? Feeling hurt when either what I'm identified with, what I'm attached to, is threatened. Defending, attacking. To hold on to what I feel is mine. And in the imagination, the fear of not having that person or that thing, losing it, it's getting destroyed. The imagination coming up, and with that the fear. One can grieve just by thinking one is going to lose someone, can evoke deep grief, the ache of it. Losing someone one is attached to through sickness and death, and imagining it, imagining being alone, imagining the times one had together. And in that imagination, grief and pain is instantly mobilized. Or not bringing up the loss, but just in one's fantasy, bringing up him or her as an image to whom I'm attached, and thinking endlessly about him or her. Wherever I turn, wherever I go, people in love say that. I think of him, I think of her. And by thinking of him or her, there's a rush of energy. of good feeling, and so often it's mixed with pain already, because he's not here, she's not here. He or she may be with someone else. Is that attachment the frequency with which the thought of him or her to whom I am attached comes up as an image in the mind, as a fantasy, and deriving pleasure from that fantasy or pain? Is that an evidence of attachment? Defensiveness, we brought up. Attack, to safeguard, to protect my attachments. Fear of loss, frequency of imagination, and the energy, positive or negative, derived from imagining, being with or being without my beloved to whom I'm attached. The thought, I won't be able to live without him or her. We talked about that in 2 groups. Attachment to children came up. I remember well the attachment to our son when he was little. We had adopted him after many years of having no children. A tremendous attachment grew. I wasn't working. I was home with him. And the fear coming up, what if he was run over by a car? If he died, if I lost him, what would I do? And prior to that, it was attachment to books. After leaving college, I became an avid reader, all the things that were not presented in college. I studied psychology, all the things that were not offered there at that school. I picked volumes and volumes of books and read them. Derived great interest and satisfaction in knowing more and more, understanding more and more on whatever level. And the thought arising, what if I grew blind, for instance, or couldn't read anymore, if all the books burned, what would I do? It was a real fear. The fear giving evidence of the attachment to reading, to knowing, to satisfying oneself in a certain manner. Attachment to an instrument, attachment to one's voice if one is a singer, and the dread of losing the voice. Because what will I be without that? Then I'm nothing, less than nothing. I'm a poor singer. So can one see all the ingredients swirling around in what we call by this word attachment? And can we see how we're looking? We're just looking without preference, without my point of view. You could say, well, you're just talking about your point of view. Maybe it is not just mine. Maybe if one looks, this is very general what is being said, even though individual examples are offered. And it's interesting, people complain to me in 2 ways, either that I don't give enough personal examples, or that my personal examples are partial. So what are you going to do? You just do what you do. Give some examples, but see and watch that they're not too personal to lack any kind of generality, any kind of application to every one of us. There may be something specific in it that does not apply, but there's also something general in it that applies to more than one, maybe to all of us. We have to see and look. So, right now, is there interest in looking at attachment for oneself? Because I cannot say the totality of parts in it. Just the tip of the iceberg is what we're looking at when we're looking at particulars. It's for each one of us to see this whole iceberg. But it's not the sum of the particulars, it's the holistic looking. The looking and listening without taking any kind of position and becoming attached to it. Without attachment. Looking without attachment. Is that holistic looking? Without a part directing the whole thing. I think we all share what one person mentioned, the difficulty at looking, what grieves us, what pains us or aches us, or looking at things that are socially condemned or undesirable, moralistically looked down upon, like envy or jealousy. We have images that we are not envious or jealous, or that we shouldn't be envious or jealous, and then that makes it very hard to look at envy as it manifests in ourselves. Jealous of someone, envious of someone's position, or having a friend that I don't have, or whatever it all may be. It is partly the images we have of ourselves to which we are attached that make it so hard to be interested in looking what is contrary to this image. Which is so contradictory to the image that the image would have to go if I was to look at envy and jealousy in myself. And very often, we human beings prefer to stick to the image than to look at the reality of what goes on in ourselves. Because the image gives some energy, some positive energy. I'm a good person, I'm a brave person. It gives some energy to think that way, to look at fear as this man said, there's sometimes no energy left. Because there's already fear of looking, isn't there? Does the fear absorb this energy? I'm afraid to look. And yet, for all of us, so many people have mentioned it to me, I know it myself. We've read it in stories. For all of us may come a moment when we have no choice but to look at what's there. Where all the other avenues of attaching or sticking to the image of myself have failed. Don't work anymore. The pain is overwhelming. The fear is disabling. I need to look at it. I'm too upset to function properly. Then to start sticking with what is, either with the help of someone else or alone. Sometimes looking with someone else gives some energy, arouses some energy to look, and it also gives maybe some safety, some feeling of help, not being alone with this. Two people looking, two people questioning, without prejudice, without condemnation or judgment of each other. That's very essential. Whether one is looking alone or together, that there be no judgment of what is being looked at being bad or wrong or sinful. But to expose it, let it reveal itself freely in the presence of no judgment, no idea for or against it. See, this is where our energy is tied up, in our fear of it, in our prejudice, in our moral judgments. Fear of being seen as somebody or known as somebody like this. And warding off the danger of being exposed, that absorbs energy. But since we're in a place like this right now, I don't say there aren't other places where one can explore, but right now we're here. There is, at least on my part, no judgment, no moral standards of how you should be, no image of how somebody should behave. We'll find out how we are by looking, listening, coming in touch with ourselves in the presence of each other, whom we don't even know. It's a strange presence, isn't it? Being with people in an intimate work whom one doesn't know. We don't know each other, most people here. Some do know each other intimately. So there are all of these personalities without personality milling around, sitting here and looking at maybe the same thing, inner dis-ease, with a mind that is freeing itself from judgment to look wholly, holistically. At one part. And it doesn't matter what part it is, fear or loneliness, envy or jealousy. If there's an opening up to whole looking or listening, then the root of all of the parts is revealed. What is the root of all the parts of our attachment, our fears, our aches and pains? I don't mean just physical. What is the root of it all? The bottom line, as we say these days. And can the looking be beyond the bottom line? It reveals it, it throws light on it, but it is not of it. It is rootless. It has no anchor, no direction. It's just the heart beating, the breath flowing, energy circulating, and a pain revealing itself, a thought becoming transparent. The connection between thought and feeling and emotion becoming palpable without judgment. out of this still listening, this quiet opening to what is, can we ask, what is faith? Does the mind move through the files, thoughts coming up about what faith is? Or is there just a quiet questioning? What do I mean by faith? Having faith. Do I have faith in someone? Do I? Someone, worldly or otherworldly? In a teacher, in a God? In providence? In Germany, when I grew up, the word God was slowly skipped and was substituted with the word providence, because somebody had to be on Germany's side, and that was providence. Can one look for oneself whether the mind is moving conceptually when it tries to answer, I have faith in someone or something? Conceptually, knowingly, what one has known or believed in. Find out for yourself. Don't take my words and take them over. I'm looking myself. I don't use the word faith very much. Sometimes I do. Maybe sometimes in a staff meeting when it seems that everybody on staff would leave, maybe wants to leave, and then I feel somehow or other this is going to go on. There's some faith there. A, that not everybody's going to leave. B, that there will be good people to do this work, to help with this work. What do I base this faith on? Because it's always been like this. It's always, from day one, it has worked. There have always been good people to help. To help with energy and good ideas. Having understanding for this work, seeing the importance of it, has always been the case from the beginning. If it hadn't been the case, if it had been difficult and faltering, and then maybe there wouldn't be the faith. So it is based on how it's always been. Whether it'll continue this way, I don't really know it. That's the truth. I can't predict, and if anybody asks me, how do you think things will be going? I don't know, we'll see. That's what I usually say. I say that more and more, we'll see. I can't be bothered too much with prediction. It's too cumbersome, because it always comes different anyways. But that this work will continue, I'm not doubting it. Because it always has. And it has strength, it has energy to it, and has truth to it. The person who brought up the thing with faith said, can it be an innocent? I have a quality of innocency. And in questioning someone, what do you mean by innocency? It's a good word, isn't it? It brings something up to faith being an innocency of looking at things. Childlike. I think what she said was also a quality of not knowing. And not, I don't know whether we said this, but we're moving together on this. In not knowing, not being inhibited by not knowing, but expanding, opening in not knowing. Not knowing can release tremendous energies to look and act now, because the presence is revealed when I don't know it. The lid is on, we said that yesterday. The lid is on when I know everything. It's the lid of knowledge. I'm not putting knowledge down, please, it has its place. But opening the lid is not knowing, and with that comes the energy to look and listen freshly. That's what, if I'm not putting it wrongly, was her feeling for faith. Maybe the best way to say what faith is to say what it is not. It is not belief in some concept. Belief in some exterior agency. Or maybe for some people it is. I'm just looking. The faith. One person once said, the faith is that all is well. Well, it's a very inspiring message. All is well. But is one just clinging to that, becoming attached to that message in order to garner positive energies from it, and with that lose interest to look at what is not well within oneself? There's the danger of these kind of faiths. The danger of becoming attached to the idea, the concept, the symbol, the message. Addicted to the energies that come from that, and no energy left to look at the dis-ease within. If it's there, if it's not there, if there's no dis-ease in there, amazingly enough, there is no need for faith in something else. Everything is there as it is, clearly. Nothing obstructing something else. And the quietness is pervasive. Quietness has no needs. Which doesn't mean one stops eating. We have to watch it. So easily what is said gets misunderstood or misconstrued, which is all right. We can clear it up anytime if you and I can get together. We will end here for today.